The Guardians of the Galaxy, arguably some of the most fun, action-packed, and emotional sci-fi movies ever made. These films are regarded as some of Marvel Studios' best, if not their absolute best movies. When the first film hit theaters back in 2014, it completely swept audiences away and popularized what was originally a ragtag group of misfits only known by the most die-hard Marvel fans, into a global sensation held in high esteem next to the likes of Spider-Man and the Avengers. And that is not a small feat by any means. It certainly has to take an incredibly talented writer to create a team of characters that can rival some of the world's greatest superhero icons. And the man responsible for the Guardians' success is due in large part to the creator James Gunn, who brought so much life and heart into this family of outsiders. Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax the Destroyer, Mantis, Rocket Raccoon, and of course Groot have so much humanity, relatability, and heart to their characters, constructing a flawed but heart-filled family of unlikely outsiders that will stick by each other until the very end of the line. I've absolutely fallen in love with these characters ever since I saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy film all the way back in 2014. The minute my 13-year-old self saw Star-Lord take off his helmet, put his earbuds, and press play on his Sony Walkman, I knew this was going to be an awesome experience. So it absolutely honors me to say that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is not only a fantastic film, but a perfect conclusion to the team's story. After watching this film, all I want to do is go see it again. Every single character is at their absolute best here, and it truly feels like the big blowout finale to this team's story. This film is also one of the best MCU movies to come out in a long time in my personal opinion. I think it's only necessary to talk about the current state of the MCU first before diving into why this film in particular is so amazing. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has certainly reminded me why I fell in love with the MCU to begin with. And no, the title of this video is not a cynical viewpoint of, well, I once loved the MCU and it sucks now, and Guardians 3 reminded me no, that is not the point I'm trying to make with this video. So if you expected a jaded and cynical tear through of the MCU's current status, I'm very sorry to disappoint you, but that is not what this video is about. This video is mainly praising the incredible movie that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I will certainly go into the MCU's current phase of projects for more context. But I really don't hate the modern MCU projects or have even checked out of the MCU as a whole as much as vocal minorities online certainly have nowadays.
Hello, Hall H! Now I could spend 90 minutes talking about what we've done, or I could spend some time talking about what we're about to do.
Now, I have practically grown up with the MCU my entire life. I saw the first Iron Man film when I was 8 years old. I remember being so excited to see that movie with my parents and little brother because I actually knew who Iron Man was at the time. I was there to see Ironmonger get dropped into the giant arc reactor and get completely destroyed. I was there to see Captain America miss his day with Peggy Carter in what's one of the most powerful endings to a Marvel movie ever. I was there to revel in excitement at the first ever team up of the Avengers, and I was there to see the epic finale after years and years of build-up. The reason Marvel has become so successful is mainly in part due to how it writes its characters. The biggest strength of these films are how each character is portrayed and how they evolve over time, which is the strongest part of the serial format. So many people all around the world cherish these characters, and it's wonderful to see. But if you have been in the online MCU space for even a little bit recently, you'll see that the public perception of these films are starting to wane a little bit. Actually, they have been waiting for a pretty long time now. Many people are very disappointed with the current direction of the MCU, and most projects have been hugely considered either just average or just plain awful. And in my opinion, I think the outrage is a tiny bit over-exaggerated, but I can completely understand where people are coming from. Most projects are mainly fine. In comparison to a lot of media, most of them are harmless and even have some pretty great moments in them that I think get overlooked. Without trying to group everyone together, I think some people really over-exaggerate the current state of the MCU and how it sucks now and people are starting to get superhero fatigue, which I don't personally agree with at all. For starters, the MCU has always had pretty average movies in the past, and nobody really made a big deal out of them. And even then, with the concept of superhero fatigue, I don't really believe this sentiment either, because people still really love superheroes, and especially more than ever. It just takes a project to be really good to truly win people over. Spider-Man No Way Home, The Loki Show, and WandaVision are just a few examples of current MCU projects that garnered pretty good reception and fans certainly seem to enjoy. However, I'm not going to sit here and state that the fans are wrong for not liking the current films in Phase 4 and 5, because yes, there has certainly been a very real lack of quality and overall rushed production. Marvel has been overworking their effects artists to the bone, and it certainly shows in most of the current films. I think the overall issue with the MCU right now and fan reception boils down to two reasons. The first is Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, because ever since the first Iron Man film, the MCU was very clearly building up to something big, which was a huge finale involving every character we have seen up until that point, and the payoff was absolutely successful and resulted in the biggest blockbuster event of the 21st century. And therein lies the problem, because after years and years of meticulous build-up and genuinely beautiful moments that involve our favorite characters, where do you go from there? Honestly, I can't even blame Marvel Studios for taking a complete 180 after Endgame's release, because it's kinda hard to follow up the biggest movie sensation of all time. It was seriously an event so big that you just had to be there to see. And the second reason is that Marvel Studios seems to just be throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, rather than focusing on consistent stories and character growth. The biggest strength of the MCU is in consistent character growth. Iron Man started off as a genius, billionaire, playboy philanthropist, and turned into a noble and loving hero who sacrificed himself to save the universe. Tony Stark was given a proper ending that was in full service of his character, and I feel as though the current MCU projects have this concept backwards. For example, I feel like writers just don't know what to do with most of these characters anymore. They lack a proper direction for the majority of legacy heroes and newcomers. Thor is a great example of this. What started off as a cocky demigod turned humble and modest by the loss of those he cared for in his life is now a goofball that Taika doesn't really know what to do with. And this is coming from someone who actually liked Thor Love and Thunder. Okay, yes, I said it, leave your comment. And the Hulk started off as an empathetic and closed off individual, someone just trying to be at peace with himself again, who is now kind of just there in other people's stories. Now, I'm not trying to rag on the direction of these characters and the direction of Phase 4. I think the overall issue is that the MCU is lacking proper direction, and I'm not just talking about the multiverse saga. This can easily be fixed, and I am optimistic about Marvel's future, since I think if they just prioritize good stories with good characters, that would certainly be enough to win fans over again. Marvel just needs to take a step back, reevaluate their priorities, and focus on delivering consistent stories with a sense of proper direction. Because guys, I gotta be honest with you, I need that Fantastic Four movie to be good. I'm genuinely worried because I don't think I can handle being disappointed for a third time in a row. This is why Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is truly winning a lot of fans over again, and why it reminded me why I love Marvel Studios to begin with. Because this movie focuses on each character and gives them a beautiful ending that's in full service of their character. Right off the bat, you can tell immediately that this was James Gunn's full vision for the film without any studio interference. And I truly appreciate that, because this is by far the darkest, most emotional Marvel film I've seen to date. Its characters and themes are beautifully interwoven together to construct one of the best stories in the MCU by far. Now, my personal favorite aspects of these movies are how music is integrated into the story, and it's very much on display in this film. The use of music in the narrative is what makes these movies distinct from the rest of every sci-fi adventure flick out there. It uses a ton of throwback songs from the 80s and 90s and contextualizes them into its scenes. It gives the film such a fun and stylized personality that's unlike any other sci-fi movie I've ever seen. It's honestly genius just how well integrated it is. Story-wise as well, it's all music that Peter had on his Walkman cassette player. It's music he grew up with and that his mother shared with him. It adds an emotional aspect to every single music choice, almost like Peter himself is picking the right song for each moment he is experiencing. And I love how Peter passes this trait on to the rest of the team, especially Rocket. They grow to love his music and make it a part of their personalities, which is beautiful to see because they truly feel like a family who shares their interests and hobbies with one another. Rocket starts the film by listening to Peter's music, and the song he is listening to, that is Creep by Radiohead, perfectly expresses the tone of the film. Volume 3 has an immediate shift in tone in comparison to the previous two films. It's much more serious and the stakes are the highest they've ever been. What I truly admire about this movie is that it doesn't hold back in showing the audience some pretty heavy stuff, but I also love how the film is still just as stylized and comedic as the first two Guardians films. It's a perfect blend of the two tones, and while there isn't as many jokes, the serious and somber moments are very much earned and don't clash with the comedy. The movie also integrates a small group of lovable characters that are integral to Rocket's early life. And while I don't want to spoil the film for those who haven't seen it, I just want to say that they were the strongest, most emotional aspect of the film for me personally. Okay, I'm just gonna go into spoilers really quick because I really want to talk about this. So if you haven't seen the film yet, please, I strongly encourage you go see the film yourself or skip to this timestamp. Okay, everyone gone? Okay, it was absolutely heartbreaking introducing a cast of innocent creatures and then just killing them off. From a writing perspective, it's very hard-hitting. We see the High Evolutionary's absolute lack of empathy for life itself, and it's displayed through the innocence of Rocket and his friends. Each character is so pure and innocent, completely oblivious to how viciously deformed and tampered with they are. Seeing them so naive and so pure of heart is what got me. It was truly heartbreaking seeing them die, and animal cruelty is certainly a strong theme in this film. And James Gunn knew damn well what he was doing when tackling this topic.
I live for the simple things, like how much this is gonna hurt.
Rocket Raccoon is definitely a major highlight of the movie, and his backstory is definitely one of the strongest aspects of the movie overall. His evolution from the first film is very clear, and it's wonderful seeing him gain leadership qualities and a backstory that recontextualizes his actions and motivations in the first two Guardians films. The entire movie structure centers around the team finding a way to prevent him from dying. It's beautiful seeing the determination of each member to save their friend. They truly feel like a family who's been through hell and back together. Rocket has spent the previous films acting reserved from the other members, slowly but surely opening his heart to them. And even though he acts out and pushes them away at times, his backstory contextualizes his behavior, and we see him learn to grow and change for the better as a character, acting more like a leader with a newfound sense of humility, culminating into an ending that makes so much sense and is very well deserved.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked.
Star-Lord continues his grief over Gamora's death, and let me say that Chris Pratt's acting is some of the best I've seen from him in this film. I would go as far to say this was his best performance, period. The movie begins with him depressed and drunk over the loss of Gamora. Meanwhile, the Guardians are annoyed yet sympathetic over his alcohol abuse. It's a powerful way of expressing just how much Peter's lost over the years, and how it's impacted him mentally. It also displays the love that each team member has for him, trying to pick him back up and keep him moving forward. After Adam Warlock's attack and Rocket's incapacitation, Peter feels a sense of guilt and shame for not being able to defend the team, believing he's the cause of Rocket's current state, and this motivates him to snap out of his depression and lead the team once more to save their friend's life. It shows how Peter isn't just a lovable goofball, he's a genuine leader with a strong sense of determination to save his family at any cost. His character growth is some of the strongest, most consistent in the entire MCU. He has dealt with loss more times than he can count, and his evolution is strongly apparent. He's much more strategically intelligent and hardened in this film, going to extreme lengths to save his family's life, a life that is quite literally hanging by a thread. He is also given a proper ending that is in full service of his character. Star-Lord's by far my favorite personal character in the movie, and as someone who's loved this character since I was a child, I couldn't be happier with this conclusion and portrayal in this film. I think it's absolutely perfect.
Mantis, look out!
Drax is relatively the same in this film as he was in Guardians 2, but that's not a bad thing at all. He's still the best comedic relief in the film, and his constant charm and love for his team is what won the hearts of everyone over to begin with. He's always had a father-like quality to his character, and it's beautifully expanded upon in this film, turning what was once a broken man with a desire for vengeance over the loss of his family into a much more compassionate and peaceful man who's finally given a true purpose that's more than fitting for his character.
We're just like Kevin Bacon.
Gamora was pretty great as well. It's sad to realize that we will never see what James Gunn actually had in mind for Gamora's ending, since her death in Infinity War wasn't his idea. But what he came up with was very strong in my opinion, and Zoe Saldana is giving such a great performance as always. She's a different enough character at heart, but still has enough of the original Gamora in her to truly feel like a part of the team again. Her and Peter's relationship is also a strong aspect of the film. I love Peter's constant need to dwell on the past, and seeing the team's reaction is certainly some of the best comedy in the movie. But it's very nice to see her warm up to him as the film progresses, leading to the two of them being able to move forward after the events of Infinity War. Groot is Groot, and it's always a treat seeing his physical evolution in these films. I love how loyal he is to each team member, and he is always the most positive one out of the family. I mean, it's kinda hard to screw up Groot in my opinion. And I also love the pair up of him and Star-Lord, leading to what's one of the best scenes in the film.
What exactly is it that they do?
Kick names, take ass.
Mantis is given much more screen time, and coming from the Christmas special, it's beautiful seeing her progression from the second film to this one. I love how while she's still her silly and compassionate self, she's much more capable and can definitely hold her own in combat. She's also much more wise, giving her brother Peter advice and honestly keeping him in check at certain points. It's a perfect sibling relationship that I do wish was fleshed out more.
Set me free. You don't need my help.
You're not a fool, Nebula.
You are a fool if you deprive yourself of hand in combat.
You'll attack me the moment I let you go.
No, I won't.
Nebula is by far the best character in the movie, period. Her evolution is the most apparent in the trilogy, and I adored her characterization in this film. She's still very hot-headed, but is also the most level-headed of the group. She has come to open up more and truly care for the team. At points, she's much more empathetic and understanding, which is such a profound evolution of her previously murderous and vengeful personality. She's found a new sense of purpose and fulfillment in the team. The Guardians are basically a found family to her, and after all the trauma and pain she's endured, everyone has also opened up to Nebula more and treats her as one of their own. It's truly beautiful seeing her as an integral part of the family now. I love her interactions with each team member as well. Her and Star-Lord have the best moment in the entire film, where the first ever F-bomb was dropped. It was so unexpected that I genuinely laughed out loud in the theater.
Hey! Where did you go, Squirrel?
It's truly wonderful to see every character get the right amount of focus and screen time in this movie. The side characters are also wonderful, albeit not as present. Kraglin has a nice arc, and the inclusion of Cosmo was a nice addition to the cast of characters. The one character that I do wish was fleshed out more was Adam Warlock. Now, I absolutely loved Will Poulter's portrayal of the character. I've seen a lot of people online agree with the sentiment that Adam Warlock was integrated in a weird way, but the more I think about it, I actually really enjoyed what James Gunn was doing with the character. He's basically a child figuring out how the universe works around him, and he was literally born yesterday in the film. But I do agree that he needed more screen time to fully flesh out his character more. But what's been set up is very promising, and I hope he can return in a future project soon. I do know his adaptation will most likely rub hardcore fans the wrong way, as he's completely different from his comic book counterpart. I'm just saying that what we have to look forward to is good. Now, the High Evolutionary is by far one of Marvel's top villains. Actor Chakudi Iwuji is given the best performance in the movie. A mixture of egotism and depravity is what brings so much energy to his performance. I love how he's just a complete evil psychopath with absolutely no empathy or regard for life. It really made me feel terrified any time a character was on screen, since he establishes such a false sense of security, to the point where I was so anxious he would just snap at any moment. I can gush about this film all day. The cinematography was so creative and well executed. There's a specific action scene that's a single take the entire time, and it's by far the best action scene in a Marvel movie. The music choice for Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys was also genius and a perfect choice for that scene. I mean, the whole soundtrack in general was phenomenal, and James Gunn really does know how to pick the best songs for his movies. I seriously don't know how they can top that scene. I am not joking. Every single character was given a send-off that felt completely satisfactory and well earned. I love this film very much, but it certainly isn't perfect. Some jokes didn't always land, and the pacing in the beginning felt a bit off once Adam Warlock showed up. Personally, it just felt like the film wanted to rush to Rocket's backstory, and it was a little jarring. However, I feel like I need to watch the film again to finalize my opinions on the pacing and editing. But it is very apparent that James Gunn gave this film his all. It's more than exceptional, and the film has so much heart and soul in it. It truly reminded me why I adore these movies and the MCU to begin with. I realize now that my very positive reactions could be the result of recent Marvel projects being very mediocre or average, so being reminded what a truly great superhero movie is has very much brought me to a sense of relief, as I now have faith that the higher-ups at Marvel can learn from this film's reception and give directors and writers more freedom and creativity when it comes to future projects. I understand that a lot more people every year are checking out of the MCU as a whole, but I do believe that the reactions are kind of over-exaggerated, just like everything in this newfound age of impossible expectations. I think that this film is proof that people aren't tired of MCU movies or even superhero movies in general. They're just tired of mediocre films and projects. The studio doesn't need to be held down by rush productions and basic scripts. Marvel is at its best when it's given the freedom to go crazy and get creative. Films like Guardians of the Galaxy, the Spider-Man movies, Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, these are all fondly remembered because the writers and directors were given a chance to be creative and try new things. They have so much heart and soul in its filmmaking, and these are just a few examples. I do hope that audiences can be reminded what a great MCU movie is by watching Guardians Volume 3, and I do hope that Marvel gets the message to let their creators breathe when it comes to new projects. This film is certainly up there with my personal top favorites now, and this trilogy is definitely the best in the entire MCU. I would even go as far to say that this is the best superhero trilogy of all time. I am more than happy that James Gunn delivered an incredible finale to this team's story, and I am more than happy that every character got an ending that felt truly complete. I will certainly miss James Gunn's time in Marvel. He brought some of the best characters, best storytelling, and the most emotion to the superhero genre as a whole. I genuinely teared up numerous times throughout this movie, and that is the biggest praise I can give a film. When it makes me care so much about the characters on screen, that's how you know the filmmakers did their job, because that's the entire point of cinema, to deliver an experience that can truly change you for the better, to deliver an experience that you could also learn from as well. And I certainly wish James Gunn nothing but success in his future endeavors. He is by far one of the best talent working in the industry today, and I have no doubt that he will deliver some truly exceptional works in the future. I will most definitely miss the Guardians of the Galaxy. These movies mean so much to me on a personal level. I absolutely love this family so much, and I cherish every single character in these movies. They have brought me so much joy and optimism in some of the hardest times of my life, and I will forever be grateful that I was able to experience these amazing movies. I saw the first film when I was 13 years old, and I finally saw the finale at 22. I will never forget the theater experience I had that was watching the first movie. The minute that Star-Lord just played his music and he started dancing so joyfully, he was just being himself, that moment truly inspired me. It showed me just how beautiful movies can be, and it will forever be one of my favorite movie moments of all time. So thank you so much, James Gunn. Thank you for giving me a beautiful trilogy that I will cherish for the rest of my life, because these movies are beautiful memories. Memories that will last forever.